Well, okay. So, like, how do you graduate somebody from JK? Like, what's the final? So you have the foundations, and then you have your intermediate, which is kind
Hmm.
of seems like, basic. So foundations is like tools, intermediate's
Hmm.
like basic strategy, and then advanced is like advanced strategy. That's kind of seems like how
Right.
you're running it. That's kind of how I run it too.
Yeah.
And then do you have like an instructor afterwards? Do they become an instructor, or do you have like a practitioner, or
They
what are they
they
working
can.
towards?
I see a completely different track, and I think that that's one of the big reasons why JKD is in such bad shape right now. Is that because of the way the seminar circuit ran in the 80s and 90s? You know, you go to a JKD thing and you could become an instructor.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
It's like a pyramid marketing thing. You know, it was like Amway for martial arts, and not
I
everybody
remember
wants to
my
be an
friend did
instructor.
that. My friend went down to
Yeah.
Vegas, and it
Hmm.
was Shad actually. I mean, I don't think he minds me
Yeah.
telling this because he
Hi,
doesn't
Chad.
claim he doesn't claim it. You know what I mean? It's not like he puts this on his
Uh-huh.
resume or anything. But he went down to Vegas and went to a weekend seminar and became a JKD instructor, a
Yeah.
concepts
Right.
instructor, and the guy actually gave him extra certificates to hand out to his students.
Yeah.
That
That's
was
put.
nuts. So go
Yeah.
ahead with
That's
that.
that's a problem. Well,
Yeah.
I think that, for the average person coming in, they just want to learn how to defend themselves. And so
Right.
that's where I think the brilliance of Jeet Kune Do and the simplicity of we tell guys, listen, you're going to have an isolation of two basic ways someone's going to attack you in a street fight. They're going to
Hmm.
throw a big haymaker, or they're going to be
Yeah.
rushing you to tackle you or grab you or try to overwhelm you. And they may change tactics as they go. They may do one and then do the other. But we work a lot against that, using the stop hit, using the footwork to facilitate the counter hits and so forth. And then we test them with focus mitts, with light boxing, sparring drills, and so forth. And I think what we want them to do is to master those primaries. And that's what
Hmm.
we call our foundation. And the foundation is, I think, the mainstay of the entire Jeet Kune Do program. Now, that's what people really want. They're going to get in great shape,
Uh-huh.
and they're going to be able to defend against the type of attacks that really real people are going to see in real life. Not They don't want it. They don't care about becoming a MMA fighter or a boxer or a Muay Thai champion or something like that. And they don't care about being an instructor. They just want to learn to do it. And so then
Right.
you've
Right.
got other people. Now, so that's foundations. Intermediate is now we're dealing with more close range strikes, how to extricate yourself from more bad spots, multiple opponents, and that kind of thing. Now you're dealing with a little bit more odd scenarios. And then finally, we look at like mastery of it, which is you've got your own style of doing it. You know how you set people up. I'm different than a couple of people I've trained that now teach at my school. They're built different.
So
They've got right.
so
And
what's at
so
the end of that? How do you what's is you have like a graduation certificate from that, or do you
yeah,
say, okay,
yeah, internally, yeah,
here's
yeah,
your black
internally we'll do
belt,
like
or
a
I know you
yeah. I
don't
mean,
have
for
belts.
lack of a
I'm
better
I'm
term,
kidding. Yeah.
I don't have a I used to. I used to have a knee-jerk reaction to black belt. Like, oh, I hated the term. And now I'm a lot okay. I understand if it means pursuit of excellence, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Um, if it means belt factory and commercial, we're not like charging lots of money for it or anything. What we're doing is we'll give guys a test that we think are consistent with trying to put people in a pressure environment,
Right.
realistic but not real. Real's too dangerous. And we've got certain mitt drills and training drills that we have people do that will show that they have to think about the technique
Hmm.
to do it wrong.
Right. Right.
That shows us, and plus they also understand violence. They understand how to deal with social violence. You cut me off in traffic, and I'm like, hey man, what's your problem? And we practice it. Somebody says, hey, what's your problem? And I've got a pat response. I said, what's your problem? And I say, my dog died, man. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Huh? They're not ready for that. Or they're
Right.
looking, what are,
They're
what are
not
you
ready
looking
for
at? What
that.
are you looking at? And I'm like, no, so what are you looking at? And I'll say, dude, I've got the same shirt. Or, man, I thought I knew you. Aren't you John from football years ago? And,
Right.
and so you learn how to talk your way out of problems. And we practice those things. And
Yeah.
they've got to know those things too, because you're not training for a sport fight. That kind of
Right.
bleeds into the MMA thing too. We're not
So
training
do you,
for, go
okay.
ahead.
Well,
Yeah.
this is kind of just bouncing this off of you because I've got somebody who's at that level. He's in advanced strategies right now, and he's getting ready
Mm-hmm.
to probably within the next I would hope 6 months if he sticks with it. He'll be like my first teacher, like somebody who's actually another teacher under me.
Okay.
And I actually have two certification levels because some people don't want to teach, but I have
Right.
I have what's called practitioner, and then I have
Yeah.
a teacher.
Yeah.
So, if
I
they
think that's
want to be a
great.
teacher, they have to actually know the curriculum a little bit more. Because there's a difference between knowing the curriculum and then being able to pass the curriculum on. So they have to be able, if
Mm-hmm.
they want to be a teacher, they have to be able to articulate the curriculum correctly,
Mm-hmm.
to a degree. And it's different
Right.
because like I've gone through this weeding out, this kid who came to me originally, he came to me because he wanted to learn Wing Chun. And I was just like, okay, I'll show you Wing Chun. And then as we were going along, I was just like, I really can't in good conscience show you just Wing Chun. I have to show you some other applications to that as well. And it kind of morphed into, but basically what I did was I just said, look, these are the foundations. These are like the
Mm-hmm.
basic technical principles you need to know. You need to know the on guard stance. You need to know. We have actually
Mm-hmm.
in my school we have a side stance as well. It's called SCOTUS, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just like a basic foundations. It's not. It's like I always analogize it to chess. I say, in level one, you're just learning the pieces. You're like, this is a pawn. This is what it does. This is how it moves. This is the knight. This is what it does. That's foundations. You're just learning the pieces and how they move. And of course, you're getting a little bit of strategy
Perfect.
because you can't really learn that the pawn kills from an angle without saying, okay, here's the bishop here. Now you're going to kill this bishop at this
Mm-hmm.
angle or this knight.
Right.
But then you get into after that, you get into basic strategy. You get into combinations of pieces. You go, okay, well, now we're going to play a little bit of a game. So, this is what you want to do. This is how you want to set up. And then advanced strategy is learning how to tear their arms off so they can't play chess. That's a little joke. That's a little joke that I've
I
heard
gotcha.
over the years. But no, advanced strategy is like learning to break the rules. It follows a little bit of Wing Chun principles, but
Mm-hmm.
it is more JKD with me. But because you learn how to get out of like
Mm-hmm.
maybe a bad
Mm-hmm.
situation, you learn how to break the rules. You say, oh, we never do this, and then you say, well, if it's part of your overall plan, go ahead. I never say there's never. It's like it doesn't you I can't tell you not to ever bend over that way. I say it's not ideal, but you know what? Maybe sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you
Right.
have to do it, and so in advanced strategies, and then we pressure test everything and then we make sure it works. So if I see
Right.
something that my students are doing and I'm like, well, that's not going to work, I say, okay, let's spar. And then we'll spar, and then I'll notice that they're doing that, and I'll come down with like a crescent kick on top of their head if they're bending over improperly, or or I'll come down with a back fist or something, you know, kind of a thing. Sounds like you're running the school the same way. Anyway,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought it was interesting, so to get
Yeah.
this here because it's kind of how
I
you're
love the
running. And
conversation.
let me ask you too about like your Wing Chun training. Because you do the JKD, and they can come and learn JKD and not do the Wing Chun class. Can you do that reverse? Can somebody say, hey, I want to learn Wing Chun, and they show up at the Wing Chun class?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the as far as the intellectual honesty goes, is that I think Jeet Kune Do, though it obviously historically Bruce Lee trained in Wing Chun, and he trained with Ip Man. He trained, his mentor really was Wang Shenliang,
Uh-huh.
and Wang Shenliang had a boxing background. Remember, he had come from a boxing school where he beat his coach, so he obviously was pretty good at that point, and was looking for another challenge. And then he went in and he was mopping with the Wing Chun students before the seniors in Ip Man were able to control him and beat him. So we're not talking about a low-level fighter. We're talking about a guy that was pretty good. And so he had some fight experience, verified fight experience. And I think that when you look at the life of Wang Shenliang and the work that he did, David
Yeah.
Peterson's book, then you see a lot of Bruce ideas, I think that really, and Bruce wrote him a letter thanking him for helping put him on a more practical path. That being said, Jeet Kune Do is different than Wing Chun. It's more of the Jim Driscoll fencing-based old school boxing
Right.
meets Wing Chun. And I think that for educational purposes needs to be taught differently, if you will. And
well,
so
in
that,
Wing Chun, you're going to learn the forms. I mean, that's going to be one of the
yeah,
biggest
right. And
differences.
you don't
I'm
need
sure you
you don't
can't
need the
learn.
forms for JKD, but you need them for Wing
Right.
Chun, right?
Right.
And so,
And you,
I mean, I've got a, if I can say this as a kind of a, I'm looking for a sort of like my trapdoor escape hatch is that I have a large school, and I've got 5,000 square feet. This is what we do full time, and I've got time and I've got space. Not every school and every student or every teacher is going to have the same type of resources that I have. But because of that, we're able to give people a real deep education in that system so they can really understand that system. I was just saying earlier, I think the first big mistake Jeet Kune Do has made in the last 25, 30 years has been trying to make everybody who's trying to learn it teach. Oh, that's the highest level. You're an instructor. Well, the person may not have good communication skills, may not be an ideas person. Now, that's the other key. You can't be a good teacher if you're not an ideas person and a people person. They just won't work. So doesn't mean that person's terrible or they're stupid. It just means they're differently. Again, I don't want a
no, I
bad.
understand. Yeah,
Right.
totally. There's a difference. That's why I have two. I have a practitioner and then a teacher. Somebody who
Right.
wants to actually teach, but somebody who's just as good as the teacher, but might not want to teach or might not be able to as a
Right.
practitioner. But it's the same
Yeah.
level.
If I go to the doctor, I don't care if my doctor is if he's a professor someplace. I care that he can fix me. That's what I care about. So in this case, I think the second big mistake is that with as far as it goes with Jeet Kune Do is, as you said, I like that. Here's the chess piece. Here's what this chess piece does, and then build the person from the ground up and keep it as simple as possible. And in making that mistake, we don't identify where things are coming from, and then you have a problem. I think that Bruce Lee never finished Wing Chun. That doesn't mean he was a bad Wing Chun person, but you've got people teaching Junfan Gung Fu, and I know this is controversial, but you didn't bring me on here to play nice. So you've got people teaching Junfan Gung Fu, and I'm like,
go ahead.
Well,
You
what the
speak
heck?
your mind. Let me just say that not
here I
all
am.
not all opinions expressed are those of the management.
Those are the hosts, right? So when you get hate mail, direct it to me. But here's my case. I don't have a problem with Jesse Glover teaching non-classical Gung Fu. It's Jesse Glover. This is what he was honest, and he said, "This is what Bruce Lee showed me. This is what I've done with it." Good. Now again, you get somebody else teaching Junfan Gung Fu, and I know some other original JKD instructors who teach what Bruce Lee was teaching. And one of these guys out there is like, he goes, I have a comprehensive Jeet Kune Do curriculum. Well, Bruce never finished Wing Chun.
Yeah.
So his Junfan Gung Fu was modified Wing Chun, some other stuff that Bruce picked up.
Right.
I've had the privilege of learning all of Wing Chun.
Yeah.
So why would you want to learn a part of a system that Bruce was trying to piece together? Because it's not like he couldn't figure it out had he been there, but he was forced to leave Hong Kong. He had to leave his training.
Right.
And he still wanted to finish his Wing Chun training by all historical accounts. So that's what my point is. Like, I don't want to confuse the issue. I thought what he developed out of necessity in the United States is what we understand as the intercepting fist way, is an incredible self-defense system. And I think we should teach that and then teach Wing Chun. I don't like teaching Junfan Gung Fu. It's like, well, what is that? That's modified Wing Chun. Well, why not just learn Wing Chun and you modify it yourself?
Quite honestly, as I understand it, that's his version of Wing Chun. That's his version of Wing Chun. But that was what Junfan Gung Fu was, and I have no idea. I mean, when I was learning Wing Chun, or when I was learning JKD, my instructor called it Junfan Gung Fu JKD, and of course this is before the internet. This is before I kind of feel fortunate in one way, but I'm also like behind the times in another way, because it's just like I skipped the whole controversy. Like I don't know the controversy.
Man.
In one way I'm like, I don't people tell me, what are you this way or are you this way? I'm like, I have no idea. I said I was taught a series of movements and I was taught a series of ideas, and they didn't conflict. I didn't have a problem with the two. He didn't present them to me as a problem. You know, he didn't
Mm-hmm.
present them.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like if you learned philosophy and somebody said, now, are you, do you side with, everything being one, or you decide with everything being many, and now here's the problem, now which one are you? I wasn't, presented that way. It was not presented, Parmenides or
Right.
Heraclitus. I was presented as, Trinitarian.
I love this podcast.
So to speak. It's so like when somebody came to me and they said, "Hey, I'm Parmenides," and somebody said, "No, I'm Heraclitus." I was just like, I didn't understand the problem. Now, in a way, it kind of also made me kind of ignorant too, because like I'm talking to somebody and I'm like, I don't really understand, so I'm catching up. I have to play this kind of catch up game with people. But as I understand it, Jun Fan Gung Fu was the movements and JKD was the ideas. Is that correct, or is it?
Well, that's why what candor, what honesty. I was a part of that whole thing. I mean, I started with Wing Chun in '81, and so I was around, and I and then I did box, and I did Wing Chun, and so as soon as I was old enough to travel on my own, I started going to JKD seminars and started with Paul Vunak. He was like my first formal Jeet Kune Do instructor in the '80s, and that's around that time. Actually before that in '85, I had started learning Jeet Kune Do on my own with Bruce Lee's Fighting Methods books, which I still recommend to everybody. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I had, the footwork, and so I didn't have anything to hit, and I didn't have any partners with that. So, I mean, obviously my education was incomplete. But then I get to the Jeet Kune Do Concepts group, and they're doing a lot of Kali and Peng Shat Salat and Muay Thai. And you're going, well, what's this stuff? And they say, well, Jeet Kune Do is a concept. And so I'm going, well, what's the concept exactly? It's efficiency. Well, then, like, Chick-fil-A is efficient. So Chick-fil-A doing just Toyota, right? It's studying your opposition. Is Toyota studying Nissan? Is that Jeet Kune Do? I mean, that's not a unique concept. That's unique to Jeet Kune Do. So what I think happened with it is that there's a lot of confusion because you have a lot of people that Bruce dies, and he was doing things that were trying to get him someplace. And I think when he got at Jeet Kune Do with the Jim Driscoll, Jack Dempsey, fencing-based old school boxing, he had a unique perspective of things that what I would call the intercepting fist way, or Jeet Kune Do, and that it should be taught as a standalone system. It's very stripped down, it's very basic, and he presented it himself in the sparring he did at the Long Beach demo. You see the unique footwork. You see a Jim Driscoll with kicks. And it's right out there in plain. And Ted Wong brought my attention to it. Ted Wong, thankfully, he had said, listen, here's the sources Bruce used. Jim Driscoll, Jack Dempsey, Noddy, the fencer, the book on fencing. Go look at those sources, and you might draw some different conclusions from the material. But here's where Bruce was going with it. And clearly, as I mentioned earlier, he was very influenced by Wang Qingliang and Ip Man's philosophy of fighting. And like Wang Qingliang was famous for saying, "Don't become Wing Chun's slave; make it your slave." And so
that's
his mentor.
Really good. That's a tweetable there. We got to get that. Make don't become a slave of Wing Chun. Make Wing Chun your slave. You can say that about any system. That's really kind of the master's level of any system. I don't want to interrupt you. You're going to go on there, but we've got to like put that on a T-shirt or something, man.
It's got to be, And Wong was a great fighter, and he had verified fights that were in newspaper accounts and so forth. Jim Driscoll, of course, was one of the greatest pound-for-pound boxers of all time, who used to knock people down with a straight left hand, vertical fist delivered left hand. And of course that gets Bruce's attention. He was doing what? Now, Bruce was not a martial deity. He wasn't Jesus Christ to Ip Man's John the Baptist. What he did was he came down and he's like, wow, I know these things work with this punch, but let me see somebody else getting the results I want. And that's what he went. And so when I'm teaching JKD, I'm trying to give people that source material. And so as far as Jun Fan Gung Fu comes in, my philosophy of it is Jun Fan Gung Fu was Bruce Lee's modified Wing Chun that he was trying to finish on his own because he was separated from his teachers. I don't teach that material because I think that material is better taught in just teaching Wing Chun. Why would I want to give a student, why would you want to come pay me to teach you a modification of a system modified by a guy who hadn't finished the system? Now, if you say, oh, well, Bruce Lee modified it. Again, I go back to Bruce Lee was not the Jesus of martial arts. He was simply, and especially he was a young man. He was 18 years old when he left Hong Kong. So he didn't have a mature view of that stuff, brilliant though he was. So that's why I have the Wing Chun separate, because the student then can make Wing Chun their slave. If I give them the components, the forms, the footwork, the striking tools, the training drills, Chi Sao, Lap Sao drill, Pak Sao, and then the fight tactics, they can make of that what they will. And they can modify it, and they can make it, you know, Ronin Wing Chun or Jason Wing Chun.
That's very interesting. And I mean, this is very interesting because this is what you're describing kind of follows like my path personally, because, you know, I've done a lot of martial arts, but I did JKD for about 2 years, and then my instructor left, and just as my instructor left, a Yip Ching student, the Yip Ching master, moved into town, Ron Heimberger, and I went into Wing Chun. And that kind of like, then I went, you know, through the Wing Chun curriculum, at least through the empty hand curriculum, and then came out of that and went back into JKD. And it's just like, okay, it gave me this more rich understanding of JKD from my own perspective. You know, it wasn't like I was trying to imitate Bruce Lee, but I kind of started to understand JKD a little bit better. You know, it was just like an eye-opening thing. It's just like, okay, I'm not trying to learn Bruce Lee's version of Wing Chun. I learned Wing Chun, and now I'm expressing my own version of Wing Chun and other tools too, obviously, you know, like the stop punch and a little bit more boxing footwork, and, you know, the footwork different. But it opened my eyes up, because it was just like, okay, I learned some Wing Chun in JKD, but then I you know, looked under the hood, and then I learned, okay, well, this is, and that's kind of part of what opened my, you know, when I was learning JKD, it wasn't back when the internet was around. I could just look up a move, and it was crazy. Even when I was learning Biu Jee, they were very, I mean, not Biu Jee, but when I was learning Wing Chun, like, it was like real secretive. Like they would kick all the students out, and then they would do the Biu Jee form. If you weren't in Biu Jee, you weren't allowed. I had no idea what Biu Jee looked like. I couldn't just look on YouTube and look up Biu Jee, you know, like everyone can now today. Like, seriously, I did not know what Biu Jee looked like. I didn't know what Biu Jee looked I didn't know what Biu Jee looked like until 2002. I had no idea what it looked like, other than just like looking in some books. But you know, I knew that some of that was a little bit, you know, going to be like a little bit of a different system. So, where was I going with that? I was going somewhere. I do this a lot, where I'm like, I'm on some roll.
It's your podcast. You do what you want.
and I think about it. But let's go back to the ranking system. So, I mean, this is all good stuff, but let's focus in on that. So you have this ranking system in JKD. How do you do the ranking system in Wing Chun at your school? Because you got a pretty substantial school. We were talking a little bit before we started the podcast about, like, you know, you do this full time. You are a full time instructor.
Yes.
And so, how do you rank?
The Lord has blessed me greatly. Yes.
Amen. How do you slice up the ranking?
How do I do it
in Wing Chun? Yeah.
We have of course the 3 empty hand forms, and I rank people according to the concepts, the dominant concepts in those forms. So we have the Silam Tao form, and we have a few associated drills, obviously, like Pak Sao, Dan Chi Sao, and basic Chi Sao, with footwork and mitt drills that go along with them, that I think would be probably unique to our approach. And we test them out of Silam Tao. And then we go to Chum Kyu, which is bridge seeking form. It's the form that literally references a tactical concept that's very important. You have to get the bridge. Like Mike Tyson, when he was Mike Tyson, spent a lot of time training with his head movement, his footwork, his jab, on how not to get knocked out going forward. Because when you go forward,
Mm-hmm.
and if you run into something, you've turned a fair hitter to a good one to a great one, and a great one to a killer. You got to be very careful going forward. And so bridge, I mean, it's clinch, contact. I want to hold and hit. And so
Yeah.
we spend a lot of time in Chum Q with learning how to close the gap without getting KO'd. You know, it's instead
Mm-hmm.
of walking forward like the Wing Chun, Franken Chun, you know, hands out in front, chin in the air. And so
Frankenstein.
Franken Chun. And so I'm telling you, you got to learn to bridge the gap, and so you start learning that. You learn Lap Sao, and you learn the big four movements from Chi Sao that are going to happen most of the time. And then advanced as we get the wooden dummy form and Biu Jee at the same time. I love the wooden dummy because it's teaching you how to angle. I remember seeing a bumper sticker once, and it said, "Lost Jesus, guess who moved?" And I'm like, the wooden dummy is if you're off position. Well, the dummy didn't move, so it's your fault.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
so then we teach you get drills. Advanced Chi Sao is developing the structure and then the fluidity to handle pressure. And we put a lot of our guys against grapplers, MMA guys that are trying to grab them, hand fight with them, and they're able to use their Wing Chun against non-Wing Chun styles. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how we test people in the Biu Jee. So Chum Q is learning how to get inside without getting KO'd. The first form tactically is learning how to intercept the strike coming at you and how not to let a guy face you. If
Okay.
he's coming at you, I want to intercept him. I want to hit him. I want to move. And then the second form is how to go get him, how to track him.
Hmm.
Okay. And in a third level, wooden dummy and Biu Jee, is then learning how to utilize this against a variety of different fighters. Now, especially today, you tell me if you're in a fight in the parking lot, are
Uh-huh.
you more likely to see a guy throwing a jab and an overhand followed by a double leg, or a guy chain punching at you and trying to lap
Well,
style you? I mean, so you got these ridiculous Chi style things I keep seeing, and then they're doing all these Chi style things, and they're learning how to fight each other in class, you know.
right, right.
And so and I try to do my best to avoid that and make sure people realize that this has to be a real skill. Is in Wing Chun should be real skill in defending yourself in the event of a violent encounter.
Yeah.
And so that organization, I said you got 5 things. You have forms, which are the structural foundations of applications, limited
Uh-huh.
only by your need or your imagination.
Okay.
And then you go to footwork, you've got to be able to move. And then you've got striking tools. Why are
Uh-huh.
boxers and Muay Thai fighters dangerous? Because they can knock you out. And they don't look to bunks out you, they look to nail you. So forms, footwork, striking tools, training drills, which is Chi Sao, Lap Sao, wall bag. Any training drill we do is
Uh-huh.
simply we're zeroing in on a particular quality of fighting.
Okay. All right.
And then like
So let's
bridging
go
drills.
back to this idea too that Bruce Lee didn't finish Wing Chun and some of the concepts in Wing Chun. But the
Mhm.
idea too, to me, that's not as big of an idea. I do understand that there are pieces of Wing Chun in JKD, and I teach those pieces of Wing Chun in JKD as they're needed.
Mhm.
But if I say, well, somebody wants to learn trapping, like I'm struggling with this right now because I'm like, okay, look, I can show you these like trapping one, like reference one, then you come around, you do Pak Sao and then Pak Sao, or Lop Sao and Lop Sao, or you do kind of like the classic JKD ones, you do the Pak Sao, then Biu Sao and Pak Sao, or the Pak Sao, Biu Sao, Lop Sao, drill. And I'm like, okay, I can show you that, and I do show my students that. But I'm like, if you really want to get good at trapping, just do some live Chi Sao, because that's really what's going to make you good at trapping is understanding
Mhm.
line and pressure.
Mhm.
So when somebody comes in, you know exactly where that hand is in reference to your center line. So
Mhm.
Chi Sao is kind of a big component in the trapping section. But okay, so this is where I'm going with this. As I learned Biu Jee, I learned it as a recovery art. It's not, Wing Chun's kind of built backwards. It's you learn the good stuff up front, and then you learn if you mess up, here's the recovery. Here's what you do. This is why you got the bent over stuff coming out like this. This is why you've got, from short range to a longer range, because Wing Chun's a longer range type of fighting. It's a punching. You're getting this out here. You get closed in. You want to start pushing back so that somebody is at the end of your fist range. Does that at all factor into does that factor into your training in either art? Does that make sense?
In what way? No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I answered the question.
Okay, so give me your philosophy on Biu Jee. So let's start there. What is Biu Jee? What is the main? Because every style, not every style, but every form has its own particular thing that it's looking for. And what I learned was Biu Jee was a recovery art. Is that the same for you, or is that not the same?
Pretty much. I think that in some extent, you're also learning to perfect the weapon. If you look at it and go, when you go into boxing, the last thing a coach will do is put a new guy in the ring with a killer before they're ready. You know what I mean? Like my coach, first thing he goes, like, okay, you're gonna get in the ring. The guy's gonna throw some punches at you, but he's not really trying to hurt you. So calm down. Try to see the shots. That's really hard to do. It's when somebody punches at you, there's a tendency to start blinking and pulling your head away. You lose your line of sight. You lose your balance. So you're learning how not to make serious mistakes on your own.
Right.
And then once you get good at that, then you learn how to maintain your structure and start applying your structure and then countering their mistakes. Right. And as you go, then you slowly start moving up into higher opposition. And I think that Biu Jee does the same type of thing. You start from Silam Tao, where you're learning how to face someone in close range fighting. It's much more natural to blade off. It's natural to grab. And Wing Chun is counterintuitive in that regard. So you have to spend a lot of time with that basic structure, teaching people not to overreach and not to overcommit or draw back or blade off when they're in close. Once you've done that, then you teach them how to get that position and achieve it in Chum Q. Now you're starting to move more and learn how to apply that. And I spent a lot of time at that range, at that time of training, getting guys to bridge against boxers, MMA style fighters, not bridging with Wing Chun guys. Like the standing reference point trapping is okay for mechanics to some extent, but it becomes self-indulgent, and the students are gauging their skill. And this is dangerous. They're gauging their skill based on how well they do in an artificial environment that would never happen in a fight.
Right.
If you want the reflex of something, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If a Martian falls in a boxing gym, he lands, he wants to see Earth, he lands in a boxing gym, and he says, hey, what are you guys doing? And some redneck boxing trainer says, what are you doing here, little red buddy? And the Martian goes, well, what's all this about? He sees one guy's jumping rope and skipping around. He sees another guy hitting a speed bag. And so what are they doing? And the redneck boxing trainer says, well, little red buddy, they were boxing. And the Martian goes, man, I don't know what you're talking about. What's boxing? I'm from Mars. He said, well, it's boxing, it's self-defense. Some guy tries to punch you, and the Martian says, well, I understand that concept. So the Martian walks out thinking that Earthlings skip on their toes and roll their punches over the top like they're hitting a speed bag to defend themselves. So he flies back to Mars and he says, Earthlings can't fight. They're horrible. They think you can hold your hands over your head, roll your fist one over the other, and skip around. And they're thinking, why would they think that? Well, that's the problem with Wing Chun, is that the trapping stuff was a drill designed to do something. Same thing with Chi Sao. And it gets morphed into, let me test my skills with you doing Chi Sao. Why in the heck would we be facing each other and try to maintain double hand contact? No one does that, and there's no evidence in reality. Just go on YouTube, look at street fights. I defy you to find me a single street fight where two people engage in a Chi Sao type struggle and stay there for more than a millisecond. But Wing Chun schools far and wide spend all class double hand sticking and not realizing that it's designed for a drill. So Biu Jee is, to finally answer your question, I got my Martian story out though, is
great.
The Biu Jee thing is you're conceptually, you're giving the student a chance to look at some angles and some structures that break rules that they were using before, learning how the body can do something that's different than what they had been doing. So it hopefully opens them up to the one and the many issue. And then tells them, I was taught that Biu Jee was the incomplete form, that you should be completing your Wing Chun. You should, if you're very tall, use your Wing Chun. You're going to use your Wing Chun different than I will if you're taller than me. If you're very compact and powerful, like laps out and punch people in the body.
Yeah. Okay.
But you should know at that point, you should be investigating, how am I going to do this? It's not about Wing Chun, because and the other issue, and it's the same thing with JKD, is this, that the student comes in and they get into a fight and they're asking me all the time, well, what's the right way to do this? And there's one way that question's fine. There's another way where it's dangerous, in that they think they need to honor JKD or Wing Chun and defend themselves. So the bad guy has one problem. He wants to beat you. You have two. You want to defend yourself and you want to honor your system. But, and so
good point. You have great points, man.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the people to realize that that's what Bruce meant when he said, before I studied the art, a punch was just a punch, a kick was just a kick. Then I got into it. It was more than a punch, more than a kick. Because you get these guys walking around and go, that's not how you bong saw. You have to bong saw like this. And they literally think, they would never admit it, but they literally think if they point the perfect bong saw at an opponent, that opponent will disappear in a cloud of smoke and never to be heard of again, because the supreme logic of the system vanquished the foe. And you got to get people out of that bubble. And boxers, MMA guys, and whatever, they're not burdened by that type of nonsense.
Right.
So I always try to pursue. Yeah, my Sifu Tony Massengill, my Wing Chun instructor, always said, one time somebody asked him about footwork, and Tony said to him, just don't fall down. And you could look at that and go, that's oversimplification, but he knew all the training had been for that guy. And he said, get your mind out of trying to be perfect, because you're in a fight, for goodness sake. And that's what Biu Jee finishes with the big splash. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, when you finish with the big splash, it's telling you two big things. Number one, don't try and look good in a fight. Just survive. And two, it's gonna be ugly. I still say that whole thing is to make you look stupid and feel stupid. Because I don't know if anybody's ever been in a violent encounter and said afterwards, truly, well, that looked good. You might, if you catch the guy clean or whatever, but I do think it's Wing Chun's way of saying, this is ugly business, and it's going to be tough. I mean, you could get knocked over, you could fall down. I'll give you a quick story, by the way. I don't think, and I'll use the young man's name. His name was William. He was in a fight. A young lady at a college bar these guys went to was in an altercation with another girl. Now, William was a friend in his group, walked out of the club, and the other group followed them. Now, William had spent maybe 3 months training with us over the summer. So he only had 3 months of training. And in that 3 months, he had learned the hit straight. If you can remember anything about fighting, remember when people swing, they're swinging roundhouse style punches. So you want to hit straight, but keep your chin down, dude. Don't lift your chin up. Well, he's trying to get everybody out of there so there's no violence. Well, one of the guys literally walks up behind the girl that was in the altercation in this club and punches her in the back of the head. Well, young William decided that this was unacceptable social behavior by somebody to punch a girl in the back of the head. And so he went to push the guy. The guy swung at him roundhouse. So it was a bit of an exchange. In the middle of his exchange, William landed a straight left hand. He had a very good straight left hand, thrown vertical fist. The guy blocked that vertical fist with his nose, and then he fell down. Well, William, in the melee, William fell down too, and he fell, and his tailbone hit the curb. And so he went down hard. The punch hit him. I know, it hurts thinking about it. So his tailbone's on fire. He got hit in the top of the head a couple of times. But then he got up, and another guy came running at him. Same exchange. Guy swinging wildly, and William lands another good straight left hand to the face. Fight's over. But again, because William's off balance, William falls down again. Yeah. And it hits his tailbone a second time.
Oh, gosh.
So, that poor guy.
He must be running. He'd have to be running on adrenaline purely at that point, because you'd be in so much pain otherwise.
He could barely walk for after that. But
Yeah.
the thing is, he did the one thing from Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do, interception, Jeet Kune,
Right.
and he did it. He didn't do it. It wasn't good looking.
Yeah.
He looked
Right.
terrible after. I mean, he looked terrible after his back. His head had lumps on it from a couple punches he took.
Right.
His tailbone was bruised, but he won the fights.
Mm-hmm.
Protect the girl, and I look at that as a success. And I think that's what the vast majority of people who get into Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do want to learn. They don't want to go, all of this nonsense and how to be able to out-chi sao their classmates. Because when it came right down to it, that's what the fight was, and that's what it's designed for. And and I think we make a mistake if we don't keep the main thing the main thing. You know what I mean? So that's why I say Biu Jee.
Right.
Biu Jee is an ugly form. The whole system's ugly. It's got its internal beauty for those of us who are Wing Chun geeks.
Yeah. Right.
But the whole idea is to remind us, fighting's ugly business. You know, it's going to be a clash of speed and power and anger, not ours. Hopefully the other guys. Hopefully we're in control. But give up any pretense of this looking like Crashing Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh yeah. Doesn't look like that at all. I mean, yeah, it's very sad because too many people think that the measure of a fight, particularly in Wing Chun, and this is why Wing Chun people get their butts kicked all the time. You know, like I've said this before, I can't remember if I've said it to you or not, but you go on YouTube and you look up, Wing Chun versus whatever, and out of about 50 fights, you'll find one guy who's a Wing Chun guy who won. And
you did? I've never seen one.
You can find. I'll send you a link.
Send me the link.
The link. And you can tell why the guy wins, but but the rest of the time the guys just stand there in what you call the Franken Wing Chun stance, thinking that if he just happens to get into trapping range, he's going to be all over this guy. And it's geared towards, and this is just what's sad, is it's geared towards chi sao being the measure of a fight, and chi sao is not the measure of a fight. It's a tool. It is, it's the Wing Chun tool basically to sharpen your skills in trapping. But it's not. It's just like with grappling. For example, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of times they don't start on their hands and on their feet when they spar. They start on their knees. Because that's every style has kind of an etiquette. But the question is
to help facilitate training, right?
Etiquette, you start so in I don't have a problem when I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu going in and starting on my knees. I don't sit there and I don't know if you saw this. It was this little Simpsons thing where it was Disco Steve or whoever it is. He's gonna fight this guy, and he's just like, it's like, unfortunately for you, I know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he lays on his back and he goes, now get in my guard.
I did see that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But sometimes people in Wing Chun do that too. They do it, but they do it with chi sao. They say, okay, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Now stand in front of me and put your hands here.
Right. And that goes back to that ignorance is not really the big problem. False knowledge is the problem. If somebody knows they don't know, they're probably going to be better off defending themselves than someone who thinks they know and they don't. Like, if I have a kid, and I tell it this way, if I have a kid come to me and this kid is a perfunctory bad student, he doesn't even want to train, all right? And he's doing, but I'm talking about piano, all right? Let's say I'm teaching him piano. Now, in no sane world do you want me to teach piano, but nevertheless. So I get this kid come to me and he's taking piano 2 days a week. So he's taking 2 hours a week. So he does it for 3 years. So he gets, let's say, 300 hours of piano training, and he hates it. He's a terrible student. But at the end of the 3 years, he's at the playground, little Johnny, bad piano student, and some other little Timmy says, hey, Johnny, I heard you play piano. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I bet you I'd beat you at piano. And so Johnny says, do you play piano? And he says, no, but I'd beat you. And so Johnny goes, dude, I'll beat you anytime, any place. Come on over to my house. I got a piano, and I will whip your tail. So they both go home. They go over there, and they sit down. Little Johnny, horrible piano student, but he's got 300 hours of bad piano playing, and he's able to play a basic song. will not be able to play anything because he's
Yeah.
never touched it before. There is no way even a bad piano student could lose a piano match against a non-piano playing person. It's not possible. But in martial
Right.
arts, in Wing Chun, you have somebody who's done 3 years of it. They've got all this Chi Sao training. They look awesome doing Chi Sao. They get into a
Yeah.
fight with someone who's never fought, and they lose. How is that possible? The only way you can account for that is that the thing the Wing Chun student was training is not real.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
what I mean by false knowledge. And that
Yeah.
you've got to have, we've got to
Dude,
rationally test things in principle.
I don't know if I've told this story before, but I got to tell it again because it's apropos for this moment. So I was up at Wing Chun camp. It was my first year up there, and there was a guy there who was a black shirt, and I was a gray shirt. So basically, I was a Chum Q student. He was a Biu Jee student, basically. And he got into a fight, and the first thing they did was they sectioned you off into different groups, and groups had different ranks in it. And then they just had these lines, and they lined you up, and they would fight. You would fight with the person, and then they would evaluate you and talk about what you're going to work on in the camp and stuff. So they just they have this person after person, and you didn't know who you were going to get. You didn't know if you're going to get a white shirt, you didn't know if you're going to get a gray shirt, you didn't know if you're going to get a black shirt, you didn't know if you're going to get somebody who was just new to it. You had no idea what you were going to, who you were up against. And they do this like a few different times, so it was a mix up. And this guy was a black shirt, and it was nuts. He went up against this guy who was just nothing. He was nothing. He just came in off the street. And of course the guy's scared. He doesn't know what he's doing. He looks at a guy who's an advanced rank in Wing Chun. And there's ego too, I can tell. And he just starts punching and kicking the guy, and he kicks the guy in the groin. And
that's gotta hurt.
And yeah, and this black shirt, this guy, he just gets humiliated. I mean, he gets humiliated. I felt really bad for him. But this is just absolutely nuts. I heard this black shirt guy. Then he goes over to the instructor, and he tells the other instructor, somebody needs to tell that guy that he's not supposed to kick unless you have their hands under control.
That's absolutely the point, right?
This is like, okay, look, there's nobody. Well, look, now wait, you can't kick me unless you have my hands under control. And that was kind of a philosophy in Wing Chun. Like you come in, you put their hands under control, and then you throw those kicks, and that's why you see those pictures in the magazine with the guy with the the foot up and his hands grabbing his hands and his foot in his neck. The classical Looney King picture. But because that was the idea, you wouldn't just come in and kick, but nobody on the street knows that. But if you never, and that's a strategy that you can prepare for, but you can't expect that from the bad guy, and anyway.
And he doesn't. That's always the thing. I mean, that barometer.
The next year too. The next year, that guy came back to Wing Chun camp, and he was an instructor. I was just like, well, I don't know what the. I hope he learned his lesson. I really hope he learned his lesson, because it was sad to see him get his butt kicked. But you're right. This is the thing. What you were saying. It's just like, okay, you are not preparing for something real. You are preparing for an imagination, imaginary thing.
Yeah, I had a guy like a couple weeks ago. We're doing a sparring class, and we're in our school we'll box with a little bit more heavy contact than we'll do anything else, because of the injury rate. The more variables we bring in, the more likelihood somebody can get hurt. Right. So So one guy, and this guy, man, he's getting good. He works hard. He's getting good, and he's more of an aggressive style fighter. He likes coming forward a lot more, and he's always coming forward. I mean, backing up, not really occurring to him. Angling out, circling out, just doesn't. He just goes forward. Well, so he's doing some sparring with people, and he's strong, and so he's giving them some trouble. So when he gets out there with some of the senior guys, he starts getting tagged harder. And he asked me afterwards. He says, "Were you mad at me? You were hitting me pretty hard." And I went, "Well, you're always coming forward," because he's gauging that, going, you weren't hitting other people as hard, so they were moving away from me.
Yeah.
where you're coming forward, and it's like that's something that's what a coach should be doing. My point with that is like that guy telling you got to tell that other fellow he can't kick me when he has my hands. So somebody violated that person's sense of rationality in the sense that he sent him out with something that was not realistic, that wasn't vetted. And you know, my point was I don't want to hit a student in the face really hard. I mean, we've got padded fists on, we've got protective gear on, but you're there to help correct erroneous, irrational, unrealistic behavior. If you're going forward, I don't care if you call it Wing Chun, boxing, wrestling, MMA, I don't care what you think it is, but if you're going forward and you run into something, if you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom because you drank too much coffee on your podcast, you know, and you run into the end table with your shin bone, the end table wasn't moving. It's going to hurt though because you're moving into it, and it's just basic physics. And that's the case with this as a school. I run the risk because people say, "Well, if I get this degree, if I get the certificate, if I get this rank, I'm going to be good, right?" No, you still have to perform, and I don't want I don't want to give anyone that false sense of security that if you get really good at the top 50 movements that Chi Sao, then you'll be able to vanquish all.
Yeah, right. No.
You know, so
it has to be pressure tested. It has to be pressure tested. That's really what's going to make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a guy who commented on one of my YouTube videos, and he said something about I forget what line was. Well, frankly, Bruce Lee taught it better, or something like that. And I went, I'm thinking, I read it, and I never comment on like really doofus stuff people will say, but I thought to myself, oh man, that hurt. Bruce Lee could have been better than me at something. I mean, you know, and you get the same thing of like, yeah, but could you be able to do that against Anderson Silva in his prime? I'm like, you know what the odds of Anderson Silva crawling through my window at 2 a.m. to beat the crap out of me are?
Pretty low.
I don't care. I mean, and let's just say, for example, let's say that I get off the podcast and then you get wind that I got into a fight with Mike Tyson.
Oh, okay.
He was down at the end of my driveway. And he heard something I'd said. Like, I mean, imagine that. As much as I talk, and he was mad at me, and I get in a fight and I lose. Could you say, well, see, therefore, Jason did not know what he's talking about? You'd be thinking, well, no, Tyson beat him. Tyson could beat a lot of people. You know, and what we're talking about is the basic. And I like to tell people, if you get good at Jeet Kune Do or Wing Chun, you should be able to defend yourself against any reasonable threat.
Yeah.
An unreasonable threat would be
Conor
a world-class
McGregor.
Fighter. Yeah, breaking in your house. You know,
Conor McGregor is a non. That's somebody who fights professionally, and I did that too. You know, I spent a lot of time. I spent more than 2 years at an MMA gym. And doing sport karate at an MMA gym and doing JKD at an MMA gym too, with a lot of success, because it's just good pressure testing. But I did fight one time a guy who is, and a lot of these guys do MMA fights too. I helped them out. I helped them sparring and stuff like that. I get in the ring with a lot of these people who are amateur fighters. Full contact, but amateur. But I did want to help this guy out who was a professional MMA fighter. And he's had like 30 fights. Like, I think he's had like 39 fights. He's not a UFC MMA fighter. He does other venues. Anybody can look him up. His name's Maurice Jackson. He's a friend of mine. He's huge. He's about, he's like 1.5 feet taller than me. But he's a professional fighter. And I got in there with him, and
So you get into a ring, you get in a cage with a guy 1.5 feet taller as a professional fighter. You've got my respect, man.
Dude,
and you live to talk about it.
Needless to say, I beat him soundly with my Wing Chun. No, I'm just kidding. He whipped me up, man. Seriously, like his extension was way better. I couldn't get my pox out up fast enough. I mean, he had superb timing, but this guy is a professional fighter. I mean, literally, he wakes up and he goes to the gym and he goes to jiu-jitsu. Then he does his sparring matches, and then he's fighting all day. I mean, he's fighting all day, 5 days a week. I mean, that's what, especially when he's getting ready for a fight. I mean, he's being paid to learn to fight. Where, unfortunately, I've got a job, and other things I got to do. I probably do better because I spend more time because I have, part-time job as me teaching martial arts and doing podcasts and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
but holy
Well, you get to
smokes.
meet wonderful personalities, but
Yeah, well, no, this guy literally, like, he made me feel like a
yeah.
white belt. I mean, he made me feel like a beginner.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a reasonable threat. How many of those
Right.
people am I going to run into? The chances that somebody like Maurice Jackson is going to be in a situation where he's going to try to rob me at the ATM is
Mm-hmm.
limited. Conor McGregor's not looking for your money. When you're
I
walking
don't
back
think
from
Connor's
the
looking for your money.
grocery
In
store.
fact, we should go rob Connor. He's
Yeah,
got a lot of
right.
money now.
Let's take you, me, and a couple other friends.
Couple other folks. Yeah, because he's probably got some Irish people with him too. He's about,
Yeah,
hey, a fight.
he's going to take us. Well, I just met him by himself. Heck, even if there were two of us, I wouldn't want to tangle fists with
That's
But
it.
you're,
We're calling Connor out on a podcast. We're going to call Connor out. We're going to mug you,
yeah,
dude.
sure. That's
I
not
mean,
a reason.
hey,
Like you said, that's not a reasonable threat. Connor. It's
no,
the fact that
no,
somebody is going to
no.
accost me at, in my. Uh, but okay, so a final question that I wanted to bounce around for the next few minutes or whatever is
Mm-hmm.
that I thought of while we were talking about this whole thing was um, uh, so you teach Jeet Kune Do and you teach Wing Chun. I've done both too. I've pretty much dropped teaching the Wing Chun at this point, just because I don't have anybody who wants to learn Wing Chun. There's just not a lot of people who want to learn Wing Chun. Um, uh, but have you had problems with people who are like, I want to learn both? I want to stay for the JKD class. I want to stay for the Wing Chun class. Are there issues there? Or are there not issues? What?
So yeah, there are, because you're talking. That's a great question, because you're talking about two different sets. It's like this. I think that you have styles make fights. Jeet Kune Do and Wing Chun are both vertical fist counter striking, straight hitting systems.
Uh-huh.
Wing Chun operates on the inside, holding and hitting.
Uh-huh.
I'll strip away all the other extraneous terminology from it. It's holding and hitting. Every time I box, there's this guy in a bow tie who would tell me this interesting stuff. Obey my commands at all times. So cheat. No low blows. Okay, that will work. No holding and hitting. Okay, so grab something and hit people, and no rabbit punches. So I don't know why there'd be a bunny in the ring anyway, but nevertheless. Wing Chun is basically a close range. If you listen to those rules, every one of those are Wing Chun. I want to hit them low.
Yeah.
I want to hold and hit. Now, and that's one of the mistakes I think people make with, incidentally, going back to that, they think they should be trapping, and they mistake a drill for a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to do is I want to hold and hit. If guy's got a long shirt on or whatever, I want to grab that, turn it, and hit him. Hold and hit. Anyway, so to do that facilitates a certain type of stance. I need to be more squared up than Wing Chun and JKD. I've got my one side, power side, preferably forward, and one is close range, one's long range. So it's like boxing styles make fights. It's one of them is like the Mike Tyson style of fighting, of boxing, and the other is more the long range Floyd Mayweather Ali style.
Right,
So if
right.
you try and do both, especially when you're just learning, it can become a little bit chaotic. Because your body's trying to develop muscle memory. I have,
Mm-hmm.
like I joke all the time, I have nothing else to do with my time. This is what I do. So I have time to do both, and my body doesn't really get confused. And muscle memory being what it is, if I put a boxing glove on, a 16-ounce glove on, I can box and kind of violate my Jeet Kune Do or Wing Chun principles. But if I take the gloves off, muscle memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that difficult. It's like if you can take somebody that's got a lot of experience in one and begin to develop them. But I always recommend people when they get started to do one or the other, unless you have nothing
Okay.
else to do with your time and you're homeless or you own a martial arts school.
Right. If you're homeless, you still got to pay for the lessons.
Well, yeah, I've had people. Some of my favorite conversations is a guy he came to me one time and he was homeless and he wanted to learn Jeet Kune Do. And I said, "You're homeless?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "You don't have any money?" He goes, well, no, but maybe I can clean the school or something. And I said, do you think the best thing for you to be doing as a man made in God's image is not to be seeking gainful employment, but to be trying to learn a martial art when you have no money?
Right.
And he goes, I remember him going, I'd never thought of that. Obviously, that's why we're having this conversation. But anyway,
think about it.
yeah,
Got to.
but I again, back to educational clarity. I think that it's, I think, better for people to do that. And some people will do both, and they've got the time and inclination for it. But again, that's up to the person. And I try and be as honest with the material and the curriculum as I can be, and try and get the best match, because some people are going to gravitate more towards the close range. I'm going to close the gap, hold and hit, drive you off your base, and hit. And other people are longer and want to use their lead hand, lead foot more. So some of it's a psychology of it. If you got somebody that's afraid of contact,
right.
and what have you, then turning them into a Tyson-esque infighter, probably not a good idea. It's like, remember Marvis Frazier, Joe Frazier? Joe Frazier's son, Marvis. Joe Frazier, of course, Smoking Joe. He's always coming forward, throwing that big old left hook. And he had a lot of success for it. He could take 3-4 punches and deliver one big left hook and knock people out. Henceforth why he lost to George Foreman, because, George hit him coming in. But Marvis, his son, did not have a very good chin and did not have a big left hook. That style got him slaughtered. I mean, Mike Tyson just literally almost decapitated him in Glens Falls in 1986, because Marvis going forward with the weak chin, weak punch, as Prime Tyson, I think anyone there could do the math. It's the same problem with Wing Chun. If you have somebody who's not very powerful and not very quick, and it's just a mismatch of styles, I would suggest that they stay longer and they work more on evasion, because that's not a good match for them psychologically or physically. I know I get heat for that, saying Wing Chun's the science of infighting. It could work for anybody. No, again, styles make fights, and you want to accentuate your most positive physical and psychological characteristics for fighting. If you're much more of a tactician, a chess thinker, I mean, think about Floyd Mayweather trying to fight like Tyson is not going to be a very good fighter. Mike Tyson trying to fight like Floyd Mayweather, not going to make a very good fighter. You're going to take away their essential qualities. You're going to have them major and minors. You're going to have them really, really good at things they're not very good at.
Right.
And the objective for any fighter is to be great at a couple of things.
Let's focus on your strengths and everyone's got you have to have a place to address your weaknesses, but you need to really, when it comes down to it, you need to focus on your strengths. Quite honestly, if you're in a fight, if I get, again, the idea of getting accosted at the ATM, so I'm not going to be like, my left foot is not as good as my right foot, and I like my kicks. I do. I've retained those from my Tong Sado days. Those really sharp kicks, powerful kicks, but my left foot's not as good. I am not that's not the time to practice my low round, high round with my left foot. It's not the time to address my weakness in that situation. I'm going to be chain punching or something I'm really super good at. But now, do you think, though, because the idea was in JKD, as I understand it, and as I learned it, and as I've continued to learn it, though, is that Wing Chun was a piece of it, because Wing Chun was the infighting part, doing the 4 ranges, your kicking range, then your punching range, then your trapping range, and then your grappling range. So as a student is running through those ranges, do you find that there's a problem with Wing Chun being implemented in there at that point, or do you is that only a problem for Wing Chun people and not a problem for JKD people, if you know what I mean?
Great. I know. Really good question. We'll spend time trying to get people to understand clearly what they're going to be good at. So if you've got a Wing Chun fighter, a Wing Chun student, and I don't think that, and people ask me this, they go, well, how do you think Wing Chun will do in MMA or the cage? My reply is that's like asking me how good is your boat on the interstate.
Yeah.
It's made for a different thing. Wing Chun, I think properly applied, is going to be really good in a close range, bad footing environment. You know, and
Hmm.
so the student is training for a different scenario than that. So if you've got a long range type of fight, I don't think the Wing Chun fighter should be thinking psychologically, if I have a lot of space to cover, then, you know, I'm in kind of a match mentality.
Right, right.
And so the guy's coming, so we're always training self-defense scenario, the guy's coming to you. And so you're going to try to triangulate an angle and cut back at him, or cut off his attack, his advance, with a bridging move. You
Hmm.
know, and we spend a lot of time doing that. So they're not trying to win a fight long. In JKD, the same thing is happening with the interception. You know, so the guy's coming to you, you're going to try to intercept him with a long punch or kick and or move and do the same now. So it's still under the premise that the attack is coming to us. If the attack isn't coming to us, the question then as a self-defense system is, why am I going forward?
Right, right.
So I always took some intellectual exception at the notion of I have to be really good at 4 inches of combat. For example, the difference in MMA and JKD. I think that was the subject we were supposed to discuss. But
Yeah, right.
but think about it. I mean, if you take an MMA guy, if you came to my school and you wanted to learn mixed martial arts, and I've got some guys coming in because of, you know, the JKD footwork and my boxing background. I get a lot of MMA guys that want me to help them with their stand-up, their striking. And I tell them, well, hey, I'm not an MMA fighter. I don't think like an MMA fighter, but I can help you here. But you better have a good grappling coach, you know,
Yeah, right, right.
because I've got my best move. I have an unbelievable move on the ground. It's called a tap. You know, I'm an unbelievable.
You're great at
Seriously,
it, right?
I'm awesome. But seriously, the aspect of it is it's different. If you got an MMA guy who doesn't have any ground fighting skills, he's an accident waiting to happen in the cage,
Hmm.
right? He just won't be able to function in there. He should be, maybe he's great at stand up, but he better be able to at least be knowledgeable in the ground. But a
Right.
street fighter, because of a difference in the way the fight's going, let's say a fight in a public restroom, a stairwell, a parking lot, I don't
Hmm.
think you need the same level of ground skills
Hmm.
for a self-defense system as you would a cage. And the same thing with boxing. Boxing, because of the gloves, is a different system, and it's a prize fight.
Hmm.
The prize fighter, I'm trying to go in and win. In a self-defense scenario, if my opponent disengaging from me, I can probably run or get a barrier. I
Right.
don't need
Yeah.
to engage that opponent. So I think that takes the place of when I say the range component is generally the opponent's coming to us and forcing us to fight, or there's really no fight.
Right.
If
Right.
if I'm in a scenario where I've got to go forward, I probably want to call the police,
Hmm.
or I have some moral and legal ground to be using a weapon.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
and
For
you know what I mean.
sure.
I'll give you an example. If somebody's attacking my wife
Okay.
and I've got to bridge the gap,
Hmm.
I'm just in the room I'm in right now. There's a bunch of things I can hit that guy with
Right. Right. Yeah.
before I get other than my bare hands. And so I
You
would
got to
try to
think
tell
outside the
people,
box for sure.
right, right. And
Hmm.
so that's what I mean in terms of the reality of the situation of a martial art, like the groin kick. You know, I
Hmm.
was on before and you asked me my 3 big self-defense tips. And I said, always be in shape,
Hmm.
move, hit everybody in the groin. If you don't hit people in
Yeah.
the groin, you're not in a street fight. Somebody commented I posted a video about JKD and groin and eye attacks.
Hmm.
And this guy, is one of those guys that has an opinion on everything you do. And he said, well, if you do that with an eye gouge or something like that, you're going to go to jail. You know, and again, my policy is not to reply to every stupid comment I see, but I'm like, I almost, my hands almost touched the keyboard. And I went to say, what do you think you're fighting for? It's a
Yeah.
life or death struggle, or else you shouldn't be in a fight. You shouldn't be in a
Right.
fender-bender fight where it's just, you know, an argument got out of hand. That's not what a martial artist is thinking.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I know, a long
Of
answer
course.
to
Of
a
course.
question. I
Well,
apologize.
no. Quite honestly, I think that too, and this is probably be another subject for another podcast. I think that's why a lot of the JKD concepts people are
Mhm.
dropping a lot of Wing Chun, and they're kind of replacing it with Kali, because
Mhm.
Kali has trapping in it,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to get into the Wing Chun stance to do it. You know what I mean? And I think
And the
that
thing, can I answer that? Can I say, and that
sure.
drives me nuts. That drives me nuts. You're training in that stance to
Uh-huh.
develop body feel. The fact
Uh-huh.
that these guys are walking around like Frankenstein, trying to walk into a hurricane force wind with their head back and whatever, is preposterous.
Yes.
No good infighter can be standing straight up with their hips forward without
Uh-huh.
having a sign on them saying, please take me down and beat my face in. It is a training
Right,
device the
right.
way a boxer trains on a heavy bag. Every boxer knows they're not going to fight a dude hanging from a chain.
Yeah.
But Wing Chun
Right,
guys seem
right.
to be convinced they've got people who haven't tested what they're doing. And if you're in Wing Chun, you're in a crouch. You should never be standing straight up in the inside. It's ludicrous. It is suicide. That is not good Wing Chun. You know, I think the
Mm-hmm.
old thing was the worst thing for an idea isn't to be attacked, it's to be incompetently defended. That's the problem. And I would say again that people are leaving Wing Chun because Wing Chun is being incompetently taught. And
Mm.
so I'm not disparaging Kali. I've done Kali myself, but you know, I keep seeing these Wing Chun guys standing straight up and going, no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. The training, the stance is developed to train you to pinch your weight in so you get rooted mobility.
Yeah.
And
Right,
so,
right.
you know, take a
And
look at,
well,
go
that's
ahead.
the thing too. I mean, when you're talking about styles, and you mentioned this earlier, you said, you have to think about two things. You have to think about whether or not I'm faithful to my style and defending myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I said that when I just recently did a martial vlog on kata, and I'm like, you
Mm-hmm.
can
Yep, I
be a
saw
good
that.
martial artist,
Yeah.
and you can do kata. You can, and
Mm-hmm.
are there
Mm-hmm.
jewels in those things that are legitimate fighting tools? I think so, absolutely. I said, but you also have something to overcome too. You have to make sure that you're not being the slave to the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
kata, that you're actually making the kata work. And where
Mm-hmm.
somebody is just, they do straight up boxing, or they do straight up MMA or grappling or something like that, they're not really fettered.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that to overcome. You can still be a great martial artist and do Wing Chun.
Mm-hmm.
You still
Right.
can. I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying you couldn't win a fight. I'm not saying you couldn't do, good in a ring. I'm not saying any of that stuff. But you do have something you've got to overcome. You do have to have that mentality where, hey, I've got to strip down what doesn't work and not worry about, am I doing Wing Chun? Am I staying faithful to my style? You just got to make sure it works.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, that was
And you've got, yeah, no, and you've got people and this is what any listener, any trainee, and I know that oftentimes we're preaching to the choir, but we're like a Methodist preaching to a Baptist choir. So, some people listen just to say, oh, that guy's full of crap. But as Wing Chun goes, I will say this again. If you're looking at your instructor do something and it doesn't pass the duh test,
uh-huh.
don't look at that and go, he must know what he's talking about. Everybody in my school has seen me sparring, doing live drills with not cooperating opponents, non-cooperative. There we go. Spit it out finally.
Yeah.
And so I'm not teaching something that you need to take my word for it. If it looks bizarre,
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to work. And so take a look at Chavez, Julio Cesar Chavez, the great boxer in the 80s and 90s. Is he standing straight up when he comes in? No. Take a look at Tyson. Is he standing straight up when he comes in? Is his footwork slow? Does he look like Frankenstein dragging the rear foot behind him and his chin's in the air and both hands are in front of him? No.
Mm-hmm.
They were low, they were mobile, and they were very elusive until they got to a better position. And that's a principle. Argue from a known to the unknown. Like Cornelius Van Til is famous for saying there's no such thing as a brute fact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem, again, all the time in Wing Chun, JKD, any martial art, you talked about the katas in that other podcast, is that what is this thing, that finger pointing away to? And then it's up to the student to go, how do I connect this to the reality that I can see in front of me? And I can't
Right,
go
right.
forward and just hope I don't get hit. I need to train. Wing Chun as a form, and I'll say it again, seeking the bridge seeking form. Right in the system, there's one form that's referencing the tactical skill that a good Wing Chun fighter has to have. They have to know how to bridge the gap properly without getting KO'd. Your opponent's bridging it for you, or you're bridging it with them, one way or the other. Right?
Right.
Watch Tyson. Go YouTube. Don't take my word for it. Go YouTube early Mike Tyson. Go watch YouTube search Mike Tyson training, and you'll notice how much time is spent on his footwork and his head movement. Because it was more essential for him to be elusive than it's just if you just stand there and throw those big shots, he's going to get knocked out because he was a small guy, believe it or not. So I'll say that and cede the floor.
We're gonna close out the program here. Great. It's always a great conversation.
Hey man, awesome.
I gotta get out there one of these days. Maybe we can sponsor a Ronin JKD
there you go.
Seminar or something like that.
Man.
Get me to come out there. I would love to do that, by the way. And just any of the listeners, if you are interested in sponsoring me to come out to do a seminar at your school or whatever, get in contact with me. You know how to get in contact with me. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely, man.
And as always, you have a book. How's your second book coming?
They're coming. They're
They're in a race. The last time, mine's not out yet either. It's called Diet Sins. Is the one that's out. It's done. It's done. I'm actually just waiting for my wife to design a cover for it, and then I'm going to upload it. But it's done. So, but it's only like a 25, 27 page book. Something like that. It's not like some big long book or something. Your book's probably much. It's a booklet. It's a booklet. Really, like I'm using Amazon and stuff like this, and this is kind of, somebody wants to listen to this or not. But I'm using Amazon as kind of almost like because you can upload things free on Amazon and people can not pay for it, almost like your own website. I have my Facebook page, I've got Amazon, and and then you can. It's almost like you don't even need your own website these days. Of course, it's probably best if you do, but you can just upload things on Amazon, and they'll sell it for you. So anyway, how's your book though? So your book. Tell people about your book.
I've got a knife book, JKD Knife Fighting. Okay, that's coming out. And I've got another one on how not to lose a street fight, the purpose of Jeet Kune Do. So those two are coming out, and they should be out shortly, as well as some instructional videos. And as soon as I can find a way, I keep doing photos. My hang-up, I'll tell the audience, the hang-up is we do photos, and I'm not nearly as good looking as I thought I was. So I keep trying to, we keep using the Photoshop, and it's just nothing I can do. So I'm like, all right, maybe I'll just bite the bullet and just run with it. But seriously, yeah, we're just, we're still editing.
Yeah. Right on.
Don't be out.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. If you like what you heard, please share this on your favorite social media. And if you want to do me a big favor right now, follow me on Facebook. That's great. Empty Cup Podcast /Facebook. I'm also on Twitter at Empty Cup Podcast, although I don't do much on Twitter, but I'm on Facebook a lot. Like if there's a video out there that I think is good, I'll put it up. If there's something out, a quote, whatever, I put that up on Facebook a lot. It's really a great place to connect with me. But if you really want to do me a favor, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And that's where you can see all these great podcasts and my instructional videos and stuff like that. I'm going to try to get a little bit better of a presence. Thank you. I'm trying to get a little bit better of a presence on YouTube. So, all right, guys, thanks a lot. And until we meet again, don't forget to keep your gloves up.